We start off with the United States, where President Joe Biden has condemned a Supreme Court verdict given his predecessor partial immunity from prosecution. He says Donald Trump would exploit this for the forthcoming election. And this is coming after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that Donald Trump and other former presidents are partially immune from criminal prosecution. There is more in this report.
President Joe Biden has described as a dangerous precedent a Supreme Court ruling giving former President Donald Trump partial immunity from criminal prosecution. The current U.S. president said the judgment undermines the rule of law and is a terrible disservice to Americans. President Biden made his stance known in a televised statement late on Monday.
Now the American people have to do what the courts should have been willing to do, but will not. The American people have to render a judgment about Donald Trump's behavior. The American people must decide whether Donald Trump's assault on our democracy on January 6th makes him unfit for public office in the highest office in the land. The American people must decide if Trump's embrace of violence to preserve his power is acceptable. Perhaps most importantly, the American people must decide if they want to entrust the president once again the presidency to Donald Trump, now knowing he'll be even more emboldened to do whatever he pleases whenever he wants to do it.
The judgment will further delay the criminal case against Mr. Trump from allegedly trying to subvert the 2020 election result that gave victory to President Biden. The trial judge must now determine which actions were carried out in Donald Trump's capacity as president, which could take months. Any trial is unlikely to start before November's presidential election. In another development, Donald Trump's lawyers have asked for the former president's conviction in his hush money criminal case to be overturned and his sentencing this month delayed. A letter sent by Donald Trump's lawyer to the New York judge presiding over the trial reportedly cites Monday's Supreme Court ruling that granted the former president immunity from prosecution for official actions he took while in office. This comes as Monday's ruling by the Supreme Court has been commended by Mr. Trump as a big win for democracy. Recall that in May, Donald Trump was convicted on 34 counts of falsifying business records. He will be sentenced on the 11th of July. The justices found that the president had immunity for official acts, but was not immune for unofficial acts.
Joining me now is Global Affairs Analyst Kunle Falomo for more on this latest development. I also have Global Affairs Analyst Ejike Okwa on the World News. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on the program. Trump says it's a big win for democracy, but President Biden calls it a dangerous precedent that undermines the rule of law. In fact, he says here that it's a terrible disservice to Americans. Mr. Okwa, I know you have a soft spot for former President Trump, but what does this judgment say about the current state of American democracy, its institutions and rule of law?
Thank you for having me. Look, this is not new in America. We have institutions. This is not about the individual. You know, if the Supreme Court has said, the president is not immune, we're just going to open a Pandora box and we don't know where this is going to stop. People could start coming after any president that is still alive and start to find something to say, they will sue them for what they did. So I think, what you see now, the Democrats are angry because they've been trying to get Trump. And then, the Republicans are saying, hey, this is fair. It's about the Supreme Court. In our Constitution, we have the separation of power. It doesn't matter who is in there. They have ruled. I think those who are crying need to cry. Biden is just behaving like a crybaby because he thought, okay, maybe, the Supreme Court would have said otherwise. Now people are leaning and say, oh, the 6 conservative judges, and all that. Look, you look at the American history from the time this country was, formed. There's never been anything that the Supreme Court does that somebody doesn't say, oh, they shouldn't have. So right. It is what it is. We're going to have to move on. The American people have the ultimate decision to make come November 5th. Nothing anybody says is going to change that. So, I'm glad I'm a Republican. I don't apologize for it. I'm not a Republican because of Trump. I'm a Republican because of what I believe, the role of government needs to be.
All right. Let me bring Mr. Falwell into this conversation. The U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that while a president is immune from criminal prosecution for official acts taken in office, is not immune for unofficial acts. It's hard to tell where the line is crossed here. But doesn't this also make the power of the president dictatorial? The U.S. usually will flaunt itself as a democracy that is seemingly accountable and that respects the rule of law.
Most definitely. So I would say, first and foremost, I do not belong to any political party. I'm not affiliated with the Republicans or Democrats or the Liberals. I do believe that this is a very interesting times, and this couldn't have come at any time better because we're having an election come November, and the stakes are pretty high. So one of the bone of contention is the fact that the case against Mr. Trump is the fact that he was trying to subvert the 2020 election, and that was another interesting conversation that was it's grappled, national polity. But as it is, just like you rightly said, it might not be crucified or tried for being in office and having all those powers at that time, but private act, he could be responsible, or he could face trial for that. And it's an interesting precedent, as we all know. It has massive implications across the world, and everybody seems to be talking about this. But the Supreme Court knows best. I would also mention that. Even the Supreme Court, as it is here in America, the public confidence so far has been eroding because people do no longer have trust in the judicial system anymore. Thanks to many or plenty of accusations and counter accusations, even from Mr. Trump himself, that has outed the United States judicial system as bad people and folks that belong to different political parties and things like that. So people do not have that trust as they used to in the judiciary. But having said that, we'll just have to keep looking and see what the conclusions will be. Right. The election coming up November.
So let me agree with both of you that the Supreme Court knows best and leave out the likely fallout of this judgment. But Mr. Okpa, this judgment will now further delay the criminal case against Mr. Trump for allegedly trying to subvert the 2020 election result. We understand that any trial is unlikely to start before the election in November. That's some good news for the Trump campaign, right?
Look, if you go back to the interviews you guys have had with me on this subject, I said this is going to backfire. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm not also stupid. When that case was filed, I said, what are they trying to do? Except to see what they're going to throw at Mr. Trump that will stick, and nothing has stuck. Even if you convict somebody becomes a felon after they have done time until they exhaust the right of appeal. So whatever happens, in fact, if you look at what the Supreme Court has said, it said official. Now they referred it back to the lower court. So what the lower court has to now come back and prove that what he did. So if they want to do that, more grease to their elbow. So go back. If Jack Smith wants to try this case again, pick it up and go back. And even if he convicts Trump at that level, he's still going to appeal it. So the Supreme Court didn't say, no, you can't try it. You have to now, the burden of proof is on the lower court to now say that what he did, wasn't an official duty. So let's put that aside. The thing about America, even when Black people in this country were ruled to be a quarter and a half and all of that stuff, it was still the Supreme Court. So it's a human-run institution. But all we have to do is we keep improving on it. We keep being the human beings so that institutions will have less burden on us. So America is not a perfect country. And then, this idea that the implication on the world, America is not the world. The ruling is for American president. Anybody sitting anywhere in that country and thinking, oh, what is going on in America is how I'm going to do that. They are, I don't want to use the word that's come to my mind. Make your own country work.
All right.
America works for us. And if you think that because America is whatever it is, and that's how you're going to do your own thing, you are wrong. Every country has its own geographic boundary, and their laws which affects the people in that particular country, not Nigeria, not anywhere, not Russia. It's an American law, and the law is for our American president.
I agree with you, Mr. Okpa. Lots of developments and the factors, very critical factors ahead of the election. One of it is also the debate a few days ago. And I just want to bring that up quickly with Mr. Fallowo. We've seen the Biden presidency trying hard to double down on the fallout of his performance at that debate. But should this be taken, do you think this is a one-time gaffe, or does this have any implication on his ability to govern? And how important has that conversation grown in the U.S. now as regards his age and capacity?
First of all, I want to say that just to follow up on what Mr. Educate mentioned about American politics and its relevance to the international community. We are more of a beacon of democracy, and America is a great country that has its hands on literally every part of the world because, America is doing this and that, and we bolden ourselves as a hallmark of democratic values. Having said that, decisions of this nature would have some, conversations, will generate conversation across the world. We can't do nothing about that. However, back to your question, I would say that, yes, it was a gaffe. It wasn't the best of Mr. Biden. By the way, I would also mention that between former President Trump and Joe Biden, it's just 3 years apart. They are 3 years apart. So they're older gentlemen, both of them. And I would say that what the Biden campaign should have done was to let the American people be aware that the president was not feeling well. He had colds that day. He was having a bad day, and it could have happened to any one of us. And sometimes we get knocks, and part of what we do as best as humans, especially as people who want to do best for other people, is to come back and be stronger. So I wouldn't say his mental acuity or his cognitive ability is declining. We can understand that as an older gentleman, but he knows how to do the job.
And then, Mr. Fallowo,
and it's something that we can all see.
You see, yes, I'm just told we have to go now, but I'm sure the consensus of some Americans is beyond just his performance during that debate. Some have commented online that it looks frozen in some of his outings, quite disconnected from what's happening. I'm sure you've seen those comments yourself. But Mr. Okpa, if my memory serves me right, President Biden didn't win his first debate, but went on to win the second and third and became president. I'm sure the Republicans are aware that he might actually have a comeback, right?
Look, anything, polls and debates don't win an election. The votes, that's what wins election. Anybody giving the excuse for Biden that he had COVID, that is, that is cockamamie. The man over the years, you have seen his ability to speak. He don't have to be a doctor. Look at his face. Look at when he start to make a sentence. He start to agonize. And in the middle of it, he's lost. He forgets even what he said. And then when he concludes, he asks him, what did he just say? He said he doesn't know. My mother-in-law is 86 years old, a Yoruba woman. The woman can speak, has no glasses. It's not about the age. It's a mental, it's a health issue that is this guy is suffering. And then they look at the physical ability. Look at how he walks. You don't have to be a doctor. If you are healthy, it will be shown how you take your steps.
All right.
And when you open your mouth and you have your facial expression, look at anybody when they talk. Look at their face. Biden is agonizing instead. So look, the age difference is not the fact. When you are mentally, our governor in Texas is in a wheelchair, okay? But he has this, Texas is the biggest economy, or one of the biggest economy in the world as well as in America. It has nothing to do with that. It is what goes on in the brain. So when you lose the brain capacity to process thoughts, to respond to the thoughts, to even inspire the people you're trying to
I hear you, Mr. Ekpa.
Then that's a challenge.
I'm afraid we have to go now. But that's one way to look at it. His family members think he's fit. His wife thinks he's okay. The vice president, who works closely with him, have also said that he's fit like a fiddle. I think we have to leave it there and continue this conversation some other time. Kule Falowo, Ejike Okwa, Global Affairs Analyst, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
We'll take a short break and return with more stories. Stay with us, everyone.